What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of That Creative Life with your girl, Sara DIETSCHY. Today, I have a very exciting guest we just met. He is the CEO of Native. Recently, you just sold your company for $100 million.
That's right.
Just a little bit of chump change.
Tiny bit.
Yeah, to P&G. So I'm very excited to chat with you and just give me a little bit of a short bio to kick things off, give some perspective for the listeners, and then we'll kind of get into it. What is Native? Who are you?
Sure.
Where are you based?
We're based in San Francisco. Native is a personal care company. We sell safe, effective, non-toxic products that adults use in the bathroom every day. It took us 8 months to nail that sentence down because that was our mission statement.
I'm impressed.
I think it's changed, but I'm no, I like the old one.
I'm impressed by that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we launched the business in 2015. The first product that we launched was a deodorant. The deodorant took off. It was a natural deodorant. We sold it only online. Things went really well. We sold the business to Procter & Gamble in 2017. Personally, I've lived in San Francisco for about 5 years now, lived in New York for about 6 years before that, was a lawyer by training for a couple of years, and worked as a lawyer in New York City before sort of delving into entrepreneurship.
Wow. Okay. Do you miss being a lawyer at all?
I do. Actually, people say that and they expect the answer to be no, absolutely not. I do. One, everyone, I enjoy wearing suits, and I feel when you're a lawyer, you get to get tailored in suits, and it looks like you're a real professional, I remember
and your parents are super proud of you.
Oh my God. Yeah. My parents, I came home wearing a suit one day after work, and my dad gave me a handshake, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
That's one of it's lawyer, doctor, or is it really only lawyer and doctors where your parents can officially be proud of you?
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah. Oh, you're a YouTuber. Cool.
Yeah, they just don't understand what any of that kind of stuff means.
Yeah, exactly.
And even when I sold my business, they're like, yeah, great job. We don't really care. Get out that suit. Why don't you?
Exactly. So what was your business before Native? So you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then you kind of dove into entrepreneurship.
That's right. So I had a business based here in New York, and the way we positioned ourselves was a flash sales site for hard liquor. We actually worked 6 blocks from here at Canal. We worked out of there's a WeWork there now on Canal, and it used to be another co-working space called New Work City, and that's where we worked out of. And it was fantastic.
Cheesy name, but
it was a cheesy name, yeah. But it was a great community.
Yeah.
And so it was a flash sales site for hard liquor. And so what we did is we curated a bunch of artisanal spirits that were being made in the United States. And then we, spoke about the distilleries, and we're like, hey, here's this master distiller that you've never heard of. Here's what makes this bourbon really special. It's made by this family that has been making bourbon illegally for 400 years. And finally the great-great-grandson decided to get a license and sell this legally. And so we grew that business for about 18 months. Sold that business. I stayed on for about another year after the acquisition. And then I moved to San Francisco.
So what made that unique, that first business? So I guess essentially you're another middleman, right? But you're really storytelling to these places that need to buy alcohol. Is that what made you unique?
Yeah. So one, we're storytelling to the consumers to buy alcohol, and we're like, hey, here's why this spirit is really special.
So it was directly to consumers,
yeah, it was
not
direct to
bars.
Correct.
Gotcha.
That's what made it. I think that's partly what made it unique. And I think at the time, today, you can walk into almost any liquor store and find a great selection of spirits. In 2012 and 2013, when we had sort of gotten into the business, that was not the case. It was still Jack Daniels and Macallan dominating the shelves of liquor stores. And so we're like, here are all these tiny brands that have never gotten any shelf space. And even when you go to the store, you have no idea why Finger Lakes bourbon is going to be better than Jack Daniels bourbon. And you don't know that there's a story, and you don't know that there's 6 guys working at the entire distillery, as opposed to the, thousands that work at Jack Daniels. And so I think that's what also made us special, where we were actually having, we had a direct line of communication with all of these distilleries, and we're like, tell us why you're doing this and why this is good.
Yeah. So why did you do that? Was being a lawyer not fun?
Being a lawyer is a little taxing, and you end up drinking a lot of alcohol.
Yeah. So there's the bridge.
That's slightly the bridge. In reality, I think the bridge was, my co-founder was a law school classmate of mine, and we had sort of thought of this business and had the idea for years. And finally, we're like, look, we don't think we're going to be lawyers for the rest of our lives. Why don't we finally just quit and take the plunge and see if we can make this a business and be entrepreneurs?
Interesting. What was it about New York that made you either stay here or move here? Where did you go to college, first of all?
I went to college at University of Florida.
Okay.
And then I moved to New York. I went to law school, and then I moved to New York after law school. And like New York was where all lawyers were moving to. Like, you know, if you go to, like, I went to law school in New England, and everyone sort of moves to New York afterwards.
Gotcha.
Because that's where all the jobs are, and that's where all the massive law firms are. So I feel like I followed, like, you know, 50% of my class out here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't know that, huh? And then, so what was that moment? So you had a colleague, and you were like, hey, it's in the back of your mind, but I can imagine it's kind of hard to give up like a solid 9 to 5. You have a check coming in,
Definitely.
You're good, you're like comfy in New York, things are good. I mean, what was that moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. First, it's not 9 to 5. It's like 9 to 2 a.m. Okay. Like when you're an attorney, it's like rough.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I took home like one of those black Lincoln Town cars. I was like, wow, I've made it. And then like the 10th night in a row, I was leaving the office at 4 a.m. I was like, oh, the people in here are miserable. I thought they were like the elite members of New York City. Actually, they're the miserable citizens of New York City. And like what happened was at some point I was like working, and I realized that, you know, when you're an attorney, if you're a second year attorney, it doesn't matter how good the quality of your work is. You're a second year attorney. It's very hierarchical and not very meritocratic. And so I was like, I can't do this for another 10. Like, I don't want to work for 10 years and work my ass off, only to like be relegated to the year I graduated law school. And that was sort of like what pushed me over the edge.
Interesting. Gotcha. So you did that for a couple years. Did you sell it, or did you hand it off to someone else?
No, we sold the business to a family office based in Atlanta. Okay. That runs like, they used to own like Books A Million. In fact, they may still own it. I'm not really sure. Okay. They also own like TNT Fireworks. It's like this family office that owns a bunch of weird businesses.
Interesting. And, well, good for them.
Yeah. They were fantastic people. Love those guys.
And then what was your problem with deodorant? You know?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Native obviously captures a lot of people's either hearts or minds, but what was the problem to solve?
Yeah. What deodorant do you use?
I use Dove. It's like the stuff that you put on at night, because I need like the extra strength to not sweat.
Gotcha. Okay.
Probably TMI for my peachy fam out there. But like, I don't sweat, so it's great.
And when you read the back, have you read the ingredient label?
Probably not. Okay. Is it bad? Is there a lot of stuff in there?
You try reading the ingredient label, and like once you flip over your deodorant, you're like, I see the problem.
I mean, honestly though, if they just kill my armpit buds or whatever makes me sweat, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost okay. I feel like that's the kill is the operative word, and I don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
Right.
But like in reality, for me, I was like, look, I bought Axe deodorant for my entire life until I started Native, and I was like, I'd buy it at Dwayne Reed, and I'd be like, I like flip it over, and I'm like, I'm an attorney. I should be able to like speak English.
Yeah.
And I cannot pronounce a single one of these ingredients, and that cannot be good for me. And like, unlike shampoo, which I wash out of my hair, or toothpaste, which I rinse out of my mouth, like deodorant stays on my body every day.
Yeah.
And it has since I was like 14 years old, and it will until the day I die, basically. And so I was like, if this is happening, I probably want to be able to pronounce the ingredients that are on the product I use every day.
I need to go pick up some Native deodorant.
You should.
Do you have like an extra strength Native deodorant?
No, so one of the things that we wanted to do was like, you know, when
Chris Hall is over here in the corner just making faces like, oh, I didn't know Sarah
was so sweaty.
Gross. I've never had a problem with smell, but sweat. I don't know, but they solved it. So if you have an extra, thank you. The smell was never the problem, but if you have an extra strength one.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, we don't have an extra strength one, and I'll tell you why, is like, you know, when you walk down the oral care, like when you walk down the toothpaste aisle, you're like, do I want Colgate Pro Clean Extra or Pro Clean 3D whitening? And you're like, I don't know what any of these terms mean. And so we wanted to be like, okay, forget all of those choices. None of those choices mean anything, and no one knows how to navigate that aisle. I mean, it happens in like, you know, degree as well. Do I want degree or degree motion sense? What is motion sense? I have no clue. And I'm in the industry. Toothpaste. It's crazy how many different versions there are. But what's so crazy is all of the teeth whitening toothpaste made my teeth so sensitive that literally now I have to be the person who's like scrounging through the toothpaste aisle to find the one like basic one that doesn't have anything in it.
And it's so hard to find just like a normal toothpaste.
Does that mean have you tried like Sensodyne? They always
it made my teeth even more sensitive.
Really?
Sensodyne killed my teeth. So you guys are just going to learn a lot about Sara in this podcast. But when I was in 8th grade, after I got my braces off, I went and got the teeth whitening thing done.
Yeah.
And it's basically like 3 rounds of 40 minutes under this like crazy laser thing where they're just like zapping your teeth to be whiter. And it hurt so bad. Like the zingers that you got, I would recommend this to no one. I literally had to like get out of the chair in the middle of the second session because it was so brutal. My teeth are white, which is great, but it was insane. And it made my teeth sensitive from here on out. And when I tried the Sensodyne to kind of solve that, it escalated it somehow.
Oh, that's terrible.
I don't know. I saw that you guys have a toothpaste, so maybe I can try your toothpaste.
Yeah, and so our goal was like, look, we don't want to we don't want this paradox of choice where when you walk down the toothpaste aisle, you're like, what should I be buying here? Like, I want white teeth and I don't want cavities, and like, you know, I want like
should be simple.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what else is there? Like, what does 3D Pro Clean Health mean? What does 3D mean? Like, it's a tooth. Aren't they all like three-dimensional?
All 3D.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, we need to like get rid of all this like choice and all make a really simple product. And so we don't have like extra strength versions. We just have native. And what happens is you just choose the scent that you like. And that's the only choice that you make.
Cool. I think that's an interesting trend with direct-to-consumer brands is they really just, it might sometimes only be one product that they start with. And, you know, okay, how does that work? And, you know, you said you did a lot of A/B testing in the beginning with this with just a few customers, and then you can build upon that. But it's interesting because there's so many options out there, and sometimes you can really cut through the clutter when you just have one really strong product.
Definitely. I think that's what Casper did a great job of, right? Like when you go to the mattress store, they're like, what firmness do you want? And you're like, what number? Like, what would I give you a number?
Right.
Like 17 firmness? Or I want 23 actually.
Exactly.
And Casper was like, look, everyone wants an easy to buy mattress, and we're going to make that.
Yeah. And it's in a box.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And you don't have to go to the store and deal with like a delivery date. You order it online and it comes to you a day later.
I will say though, I think I've been through 3 different of the direct-to-consumer brand mattresses.
Oh, really? Which one did you settle on?
So I settled on, I don't even know their name. Isn't that sad?
Yes.
They were such an obscure D2C Instagram ad brand that literally like my manager texted to me and was like, hey, this seems affordable for a king. It was like $900 for a king bed, and it was the first one that actually had springs in it.
Oh wow.
Because I just kind of need that old classic feel. I can't do the
foam.
The memory foam.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, perfect. So I don't even, it's like, is it Ali something Ali that's sad. I don't know.
Sure.
But the first one I actually got was Tuft & Needle, and it was just too memory foamy for me.
Yeah.
But they have that whole free return policy is so funny because who wants to go through the journey of like returning that mattress?
Sure.
It's smart. It's like free returns, but you're never going to use it probably.
Yeah. So you didn't return the 2 that you got?
No, I just gave it to a friend.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what my point was for there. Oh yeah. You can really cut through all of this noise with one product,
Definitely.
right? So what was the choice to expand in toothpaste and these other products?
So basically we wanted to bring the same, there aren't a lot of brands in CPG that expand across categories today. Like, you know, Old Spice isn't going to be making a toothpaste anytime soon.
CPG is consumer packaged goods for the peeps who don't know.
And neither will Dove, right? Like Dove shouldn't make a toothpaste. And we thought we had this brand ethos that could extend that equity into other categories where we're like, look, we stand for simplicity and we stand for good ingredients. And that can affect body wash, and that can affect toothpaste, and that can affect shampoo and a bunch of other categories. And we don't stand for something like where we're like ultra manly scent, right? Which is what Old Spice stands for and probably fits perfectly into the body wash and deodorant space, but wouldn't fit well into the toothpaste space. So I think we had the brand equity and ethos to do that. And then we sort of saw the same problem in some of those other categories as well, like oral care in particular, where we're like, there's a paradox of choice. I have no idea what I should be buying. And I want to remove that choice. And I want something that like works and sits on my counter and is made from ingredients that I'm not afraid of. And so that was sort of the mentality of extending categories.
You said in an interview that you were Native was one of the top selling brands on Amazon, but you still had more sales on your website.
That's right. Native is, I think, right now the number one selling deodorant on Amazon.
Amazing.
But the sales through our own website far and away eclipse the sales that we have through Amazon.
So what is your opinion on selling Amazon versus your normal website? Because I know a lot of startups, a lot of companies don't want to give in to Amazon because they want their own data. They want to keep the consumer data, right? Because when you sell on Amazon, Amazon gets that, right?
Definitely.
So what have you seen some of the pros and cons of selling on Amazon versus selling on your own website?
Sure. So Amazon, we only started selling on Amazon realistically we gave into Amazon a real effort in the last 6 months. So we haven't been on Amazon very long. I would say a few things. One is I understand where other brands are coming from. We have 3 million customers that have purchased from us from our own website. So we've got a lot of consumer information. And we understand consumers in terms of when they want to buy again. We understand how to communicate with consumers. And if we want to try new things and A/B test products or get feedback from our consumers, it's not like we don't have a channel for that. We have 3 million people in the United States who have purchased from us through our own website. And so, we can communicate with them relatively easily. I think at some point we were like, look, we want to be on Amazon because one, some people just don't want to purchase products that are not on Amazon. And two, even if you do, I'm probably more okay purchasing a Tuft & Needle mattress from tuftandneedle.com than I am purchasing a deodorant because this is a big purchase that I'm going to make when I'm buying a mattress. I'm going to buy it once and not repeatedly.
And deodorant is kind of something you buy with other stuff.
Yeah,
you put it in your Amazon cart, you move on.
Yeah, exactly. And today, 97% of deodorants or around 97% of deodorants are still sold in brick and mortar stores. The vast majority of sales still happen offline. And so at some point we're like, look, we have to cross the Rubicon of being a DTC only brand to being a brand that is available wherever consumers want us to be.
Are you in brick and mortar at all?
Yeah, we're in Target and we're in Walmart now.
Wow.
In Target, Native Coconut and Vanilla is the best-selling deodorant SKU at Target over the last 52 weeks. Although we've only been there since September, so it's pretty good.
Interesting. Cool. Great job.
We were just in Walmart. We launched into Walmart 6 months ago or so, and that's been going phenomenally well. And we're going to expand into a bunch of other brick and mortar stores over the next 6 months.
I feel like CVS Walgreens is the move. I feel like that's where I get all my deodorant. I'm just there picking up a drink or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I need deodorant.
Yeah. That's very New York of you.
Yeah, that is probably more unique of New York because it's unique New York, New York. Sorry, I just flashed back to my 8th grade theater days. That was one of our warm-ups. You would probably know about that, Chris, with your theater stuff.
Unique New York?
So you warm up because it's a tongue twister. So you'd sit there and be unique. See, I'm already tongue twisted. New York, unique New York.
Yeah,
anyways, that's interesting that 97% is that deodorant or goods like that?
Deodorant. Yeah,
okay.
Deodorant category in particular.
So is that what you saw as kind of this white space to come in as a DTC brand? And because you're seeing, no one's buying Dove deodorant or anything else online, so we could be that brand.
I think that the way we saw it was we need to make we want to make products that are good for you and that are better for you to use and don't have these weird ingredients that you should be afraid of. And so we're like, okay, why don't we come in with a deodorant that works and that's made from ingredients people can pronounce? We don't have the bandwidth or the understanding of how to sell into Target and Walmart. And Target and Walmart are going to be like, we've never heard of this brand and no one else has. Why do we start putting it on our shelves? So what we did is we're like, okay, great. Let's make this a brand online if we can. And if we can, then we can. Yeah, exactly. And so we we had a ton of momentum before, one, we sold the business, and then two, before we got into Target and Walmart.
Right.
And, but before we got, by the time we had those conversations with Target and Walmart, we're like, look, this is a brand that's doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year. We have a very enthusiastic customer base, and our customer base is also millions of people at this point. And so it's a pretty easy conversation.
You have to prove your business to get more business.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's hard to do because
it's like the chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, exactly. Really. So you're you got to start online. You're no one who's going to buy deodorant online. That doesn't happen. Can we sell in store? Not until you sell online.
Exactly. What's the experience been like with the acquisition in the past couple of years? Are you working closely with Procter and Gamble? I pronounced that weird. Procter and Gamble, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. P&G. They're based in Cincinnati, correct?
That's right.
So do you have like an apartment in Cincinnati? You're
I
there
don't
half
have an
the.
apartment in Cincinnati.
Okay, so what is that
God,
relationship like? I will say the downtown of Cincinnati is one of the cooler downtowns that I've experienced of cities I would never want to live in because it is pretty country, I feel like. But Cincinnati isn't all. I give them props.
Yeah, definitely.
They have some good restaurants.
They do. We were there on like a Thursday, and randomly the Bengals were playing like the Ravens, I think, and we're like, oh, let's all go to the Thursday night football game.
So fun.
And it was like, fun. You can do that, and it's in like the stadium's downtown, and you don't have like in San Francisco. If you want to go to Levi Stadium, you have to drive like 2 hours.
Exactly. It's a really cool downtown.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So what is your experience been like? What is your involvement?
Yeah, we don't have like an office in Cincinnati. We still have our office in San Francisco. The team is the same team that it was pre-acquisition.
Awesome.
We've like maintained a ton of independence,
which is rare. I feel like
I think it's rare, but I think it's becoming more common, which is like big brands. Like what used to happen is these big brands would buy a small brand and they're like, look, we have all these synergies. We can get you into Target and Walmart. We can get you into our manufacturing capacity and save you money. We can expand your revenue through selling into different stores, and we can get you cheaper television ads. So let's fold you into our parent company and take advantage of all those synergies. And I think that like what happened was that brands lost their DNA of what made them special and why they were working. And so now bigger brands like P&G are like, look, actually this brand might be able to do something special by itself.
Interesting.
And so let's let them have that type of like, let's let them have their own DNA and do their own thing. And like, if you come to our office has a completely different culture than when you go to Cincinnati. Like everyone's very casual and like, making jokes and talking about the TV, like whatever they watched on TV last night. And in Cincinnati, it's a bit more formal. And like,
do they wear suits?
They don't wear suits.
Okay.
I think my parents would love it if they did.
Exactly.
But so like we have our own culture and our own DNA. We make our products through our own manufacturing lines and not through P&G's. Like we sit pretty far apart from P&G. And
that's
that
what
distance
I would
has
think
helped us
would
maintain
be,
that DNA.
the first thing is, you use their resources, especially for manufacturing, because I'm thinking, they could probably do it cheaper. They could probably.
I'm sure they could do it cheaper.
But just like the conversation that we're having earlier with, you exploring different packaging for your deodorant. Maybe let's try something that's a little bit farther away from plastic. Probably if you were in the fold of their process, it would be way harder to kind of step back and say, hey, we want to try something different. So it's cool that you have that independence.
Yeah, I think it just gives us a lot more speed as well, where we're like, okay, great. Like you're working on paper packaging, we'll work on paper packaging, and we'll go do this as fast as we humanly can.
Right.
And we sort of don't have the history or like the luggage or baggage that comes along with having a company that has 100,000 employees or that has 65 billion in revenue or that has like these brands that just have lived forever.
Just for some perspective, what are some brands under P&G?
Charmin toilet paper, Bounty paper towels, Tide laundry detergent, Secret deodorant, Gillette razor blades. Like when you're shopping in CVS, they own a decent number of those. Like
it's them.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is I don't know what the right way to ask this question is, but companies that acquire brands that are on the same horizontal, or vertical. Multiple deodorant brands, that would be the same horizontal, right? Am I saying that right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same, because vertical, it's like it's one brand having different verticals. It's different products, and then, but if it's the acquisition thing is, you buy the same thing. So Coke owns all these different drinks, right? Coke isn't getting into the mattress business.
Yeah.
They own drinks.
Yes.
For companies like P&G, what is the advantage, disadvantage? Why do they acquire another deodorant brand when they have multiple deodorant brands?
Yeah, that's a great question, because P&G has Secret, Old Spice, and Gillette. I think for us is we had a different value proposition than those brands offered, which was we were based on the idea that we have safe ingredients and like that's what our DNA is. And like in the same way that Whole Foods grew up in the 90s and 2000s saying, hey, you should probably be careful about what you put in your body. Today, like the consumer says, okay, I'm careful about what I put in my body. I probably want to be careful about what I put on my body as well. And so that shift represents a new type of thinking. And it's hard for, like, some brands may be able to stretch there. And since we've launched, Secret has come out with a 0% aluminum deodorant, which, like, is somewhat towards, like, the safer ingredients. But for Native, that's where we live. Like, that was where we were born. We stand for that value proposition, and it's like the first thing that we stand for. And so I think it's hard, like, it's hard to be like, okay, great, there's a shift towards natural deodorants. Let's extend all of our brands there, because some things just can't extend that way. In the same way that, like, Coca-Cola stands for beverages, but it'd be hard for Coca-Cola to create alcohol. Coca-Cola just doesn't stand for alcohol. It might 20 years from now, but I think that, like, right now it'd be hard for them to stretch their brand towards that.
They stand for sugar.
Yeah, that's right.
So your company didn't start off with VC money, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Well, we started the business,
or a small amount.
A very small amount.
So what was that journey like?
Yeah. We started in July 2015. We raised $50,000 in November. From this guy named Wei Go, who is the he's this Chinese guy. He's so funny. I'll tell you what, like, when we were selling
Moiz,
we were selling the business, and I, like, texted, he didn't know we were selling. I texted him and I was like, hey, I need to chat with you. And he's like, is this urgent? And I was like, yeah, I'm afraid it is. I got to get you to sign all these docs. I have to tell you that we're selling the business. Or you need to do a bunch of stuff.
I'm sure he was kind of excited. Well, his $50K probably went a decent way.
His $50K
like
turned into $1 million in like 12 months. But in any case, I called him and I was like, hey, we're selling the business. I turned your $50K into $1 million. This is all, the things are great. I need you to sign these docs. And he's like, I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, the reason I asked you if this was urgent is because my wife just gave birth. But this is the best news I've heard all day. And I was like, you cannot say that.
Oh my gosh, this dude had a baby and made $1 million in the same day. What a legend.
I mean, he's a great guy.
Legend.
He's a fantastic guy. And like, so in any case, we raised $50,000 through him in November, and then another $250,000 from a VC fund called Azure when we were doing about $100K a month or so.
Are they related to Microsoft?
No,
that's
they're not.
A weird name to have.
It is a weird name to have. And now I'm always like, whenever I hear Azure, I'm like, which one are we talking about?
Exactly.
And so we raised that $300,000 like sort of in the first year of the business, and then we raised another $200,000 when we had a lot more revenue, when we were doing millions of dollars in revenue a month, and like the business was much safer.
So conservative compared to all these other DTC brands who are celebrating multiple rounds of $100 million.
Sure,
so it's interesting to hear that you went that route. Was there a certain reason, or was it purely, I don't think we need this much money? I mean, I
think it was a few things. I think one, we raised the money early on because we're like, I never raised money before with my last business, and so I was like, can I successfully do this? Will anyone ever write me a check or not? And it turned out the answer was yes, which was great. But then after that, we just had a great business that was generating a lot of cash and was making a lot of money, and so we didn't need the money. And like all of the we had a really small team as well. In June of 2016, we were doing about $250K in revenue a month, and we had that's when we hired our first employee. So it was just me.
Just you.
It was just me for the first year of the business.
What?
And so we hired our first employee, and people would be like, then we're like, okay, are you going to fundraise? And I was like, I don't have time to go out there and meet with all these people and try to run a real fundraise process. I have to we have all these customer service tickets. We have to manage our operations. We went from producing 500 units of deodorant a week to 21,000 a day, 18 months later. And so the business had just scaled significantly, and that's what we were focused on, and didn't really have the time or inclination to go out there and be like, hey, let's go, try and raise a bunch of money.
So that second round then was when you were able to kind of catch your breath, and did you see something like, this could help us buy a slew of Instagram and Facebook ads, or this could help us do XYZ? What was the reason for kind of that second round of
the $250K? Yeah, I think we were one, it was from a real VC fund as opposed to an angel investor, and I think that was going to be more challenging for us. Two, got along really well with that team. And I was like, you guys can be helpful just from having like being a great sounding board for my ideas and being like, is this realistic or is this not? And then three, I was like, yeah, we might need some of this cash. I'm not sure how we'll need it. Like maybe we'll have to buy inventory and we can't afford it right now. And I think like, you know, after we'd raised that 300K, I think at one point our cash balance dipped to like 200K. So we had actually spent $100,000 on inventory. But after that, we like, you know, we had millions of dollars and like, you know, we were just making money. It was like a genuine business that was profitable and doing well. And so we didn't need to.
Why is that so rare in Silicon Valley? It's so, when you say that,
yeah,
how
it is
did
rare.
you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Because all these different companies, they're really raising money for the exit, right?
Yeah, I think it's like a cultural, like, you know, it's just cultural. Like when you're in San Francisco, raising money is a sign of success.
Yeah.
Getting a TechCrunch article is a sign of success. And both of those should be signs of success. Yeah. But like, they're not as important as the ultimate outcome for that business.
Kind of overvalued. Though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if
creating a successful business maybe should be the ultimate.
Sure. Yeah. But it's a much longer game, right? Like you can get 4 TechCrunch articles and raise 4 rounds of cash before you exit. And so you have 4 markers of success and 4 parties and 4 reasons people are celebrating you, as opposed to just that one when you exit your business. So I think that was like different. And like, I think people have different mentalities. For me, you know, I was like, look, if I had a bunch of money and if I was all like wealthy already, I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to try and hit a home run and try and make this $1 billion company. And like, I can like, try and swing for that. Exactly.
Right. Cause you don't start a Silicon Valley startup to just build a company that makes 10 million, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's really for the big exit.
Yeah.
So that's understandable.
And I understand how people even like tier their exits where they're like, you know what, I did good with this. I did good with this business, or I made a decent amount of money with this business. Now I'm shooting for the home run. And maybe that's what'll happen in my next business.
Right. What is next?
I'm not sure.
What do you see in this world? Is it another DTC? Do you want to maybe like, I don't, you know, revolutionize the lawyer business?
Yeah.
Anything
lawyer
from your
business
past?
needs revolutionizing. But no, that's not definitely not the lawyer business.
You're
I'm like,
done.
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Mom.
It's
and
just
Dad.
too hard. Like there's too many of them and they're like too stodgy and like, you know, they constantly reschedule meetings because they have other calls. I can't do that anymore. In reality, I'm not sure. I love e-commerce and I love direct to consumer businesses and I love like talking to entrepreneurs. And so I'm not sure if it's starting another direct-to-consumer business. I'm not sure if it's, you know, working at Native and making it much larger for a you know, a significant period of my life, or if it's something else. I recognize that at some point I have to make that decision. I have to make it sooner rather than later. Yeah. But so far, like, I'm completely lost in terms of deciding what's next. Like, inertia is such a powerful force.
Right. I don't know if you have a TechCrunch article, but you're on the That Creative Life podcast. So
yeah, sign of success for sure. Definitely.
Big deal. How many employees work at Native now opposed to in the beginning when you were, because you said, how long was it just you?
It was a year. So June 2016, we hired our first employee and it gets lonely.
Yeah,
like it gets
I can
really
imagine.
lonely.
So how many people work there now?
Now there's 17 and when we sold the business there were 8.
Wow.
So it was like a lean team when we like built the business.
Yeah. Interesting. How do you build a like a culture where people are like, it's 8 people. You obviously have a thriving business, but I'm sure those 8 people are very involved with everything.
Sure.
It's only 8 people. So how do you build people who care enough to like maybe stay there past 6?
Yeah, definitely. One is, I think, empowering them to make their own decisions and sort of being like, hey, look, you don't need to ask me about this. Go do this thing yourself. Like, you're like, we made the bet on you when we hired you, and not like, we're not going to check the box every single time you want to do something new. So if you're hired, like if you work here, you have the power to do basically whatever you want. And then 2 is always giving them incredibly high level, like, the way I thought about it is I was like, look, if you think this is going to generate $100,000 in revenue for us next month, it's not important enough for us. Go find something that's more important and go fix that problem. Like no one was getting anybody's coffee and no one was doing anything that was not incredibly highly valuable. Like there was low hanging fruit and that fruit was massive. And I was like, go harvest that. And so I think that made people excited.
So what's an example of that? Like, an example of the low-hanging fruit?
So I think like what we did a terrible job of for a long time was our email marketing strategy. And we're like, look, we have these emails set up and no one's done anything about them since I set them up a year ago. And now we have all these new categories. So let's change the email marketing strategy. Like if you purchase deodorant from us, we want to send you an email 90 days later saying, hey, you might be running out, because nobody knows when they're about to run out until it's too late.
Right.
And so like people would go in and be like, great, I'm going to create an email marketing strategy around people who've purchased once and say, hey, this is how we think we should email you, and the cadence of those emails and your interaction with them. Like if you interact with them all the time, maybe we should email you once a week. And if you interact with them, never, and you never open our emails, maybe we should only interact with you once a month or once every 2 months. And so we sort of changed those strategies, and people would come in and be like, I can own this entire thing and generate 7 figures in revenue a month for this business by owning the email strategy. And that was huge for us. And, that was really valuable. And other people would come in and be like, great, you know what? We launched the seasonal scent for deodorant, which was fantastic. Let's launch 2 more seasonal scents next season. Instead of just having 1, let's launch 3. Create a $30 box for them instead of just having, instead of selling them individually. And, seasonal scents represent a huge amount of our business. And so people would come in with these ideas, we'd execute them, and all of a sudden it would be a much bigger business. And I'm like, okay, that was a great idea. Yeah. Start coming out with a bunch more of those ideas.
Yeah.
And we empowered people to make decisions.
That's great. Email marketing, social, TV. Have you done TV? What was the evolution of marketing? Did it start on Instagram? Did it start on Facebook? Where did it start?
It started on Facebook. It actually started on Google. Then it went to Facebook, and then it went to Pinterest.
Google as in YouTube pre-rolls? Or
no, this was like in 2015.
Google AdWords?
Google AdWords. In 2015, like today, Instagram is such a massive force in the in the world, actually. Like people take vacations to get Instagram photos. In 2015, it just wasn't like that. In 2015, it was just a lot more Facebook than it was Instagram. And so we spent a lot more time with Facebook. And it's evolved. And now we're doing direct mail and podcasts and television and Pinterest and Facebook and YouTube pre-roll. Like now we're doing everything.
Kind of everything.
But you sort of start like evolving those marketing channels. And like for entrepreneurs, early on, the best thing to do is focus on the 1 or 2 channels that you think you can be good at. I've never met anyone who's really good at Google ads and at Facebook ads.
So what's the difference? Is it the creative? Is that the variable with Facebook?
It's a couple things. One, it's definitely creative, but like Google is intent driven, right? Like if you're buying Google AdWords and people are saying, I'm looking for natural deodorant, you got to win that, and you got to captivate that consumer. But with Facebook, you actually have to create the demand. Like people aren't necessarily browsing Facebook.
So you kind of have to maybe educate, hey, your deodorant has all these ingredients, and
exactly.
we're the people who are going to solve it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the movie Inception. Have you seen the movie Inception?
I love that.
You have to plant that seed in someone's head and be like, hey, look, your deodorant is probably not that good for you. You might want to switch to something like Native because it's way better for you. Right.
So do you have a team of people? Did you have one person who is like the video person or the video photo word person? How did you break down that team for like creative for the ads?
I think now we're developing teams. I don't think we've had teams until, July 2019, basically. I think everyone was sort of pitching in, doing whatever they could. Like, you get decent at Photoshop just because you start Googling things on Photoshop so often. You're like, okay, I know how to do this again. And like our vice president of operations, she was great. And like, she made our labels because she was the only one who knew how to use Illustrator. And so we're like, amazing. Great, you also will make labels. And so like random stuff like that happened. Yeah. Today we're doing a better job. We have a creative director. When we shoot TV ads, we're like professional about it. But back then we're like, let's like tape this together with duct tape and pray it doesn't fall apart.
That is amazing. And proof of how far really a good idea can take you.
Definitely.
You had a seed of an idea. It's obviously something that people are connecting with. And it doesn't matter. Like you didn't need 100-person team. You didn't need to raise $500 million to make it work.
Definitely. I think like empowering people is incredibly valuable. Like if you let people make their own decisions, you hire smart people and you let them make their own decisions, like they can buy into an organization.
Right.
And like people would come in on the weekends. I still get Slacks all the time on the weekends. And I'm like, wow, you guys are really dedicated to this organization. I'm sitting on a beach. Give me a break. But like, they're fantastic. And it's because we hired people who like care.
Wow.
And that's really hard to do. Like, and that's, I think one of the reasons we were so slow at hiring and bad at hiring is because we're like, you just don't seem like you care enough about this company.
Right. Well, I'm forever interested by it because my entire career, I've been a solo creator. And I think that's what a lot of people face. If you're a YouTuber or a podcaster or whatever you are, you get some traction as you and only you. And then once it starts building, oh my gosh, you have too much work. You need to delegate. How do I hire people? And when you're a quote unquote creative, you're not necessarily an operator. You don't know how to write down process. You don't know how to, it's a very difficult thing. So, what were some of the things that, you say you looked for people who were committed, but how did you gauge that? What were some of the questions maybe you would ask? Would you check out their social media? Would you ask them personal questions? How did you gauge that when hiring?
Oh, there's almost the simplest question in the world would be why do you want to work here? You're in San Francisco, the unemployment rate here is negative 10%. You could you could work at any company you want to, and if you don't like the job, if you don't like what you do at Native, you could quit day 2 and find another job by the end of the day. Why do you want to work here out of all the places in the world that you can work at? And I think just judging people's enthusiasm was really was a good barometer as to how interested they would be. Some people came in and they're like, I know everything about your brand. I really love this company. I love what you guys stand for. I use the product and I want to be part of this. And some people would come in and be like, I can do customer service from 9 to 5. And I've done it before and I'm ready to do that. And that's good. And now we have 5 or 6 people interview you. And we have a good idea of will you be a cultural fit or will you not be? And so I think that was what was really helpful. But the number one question we asked would be, why do you want to work here as opposed to all the other places you could work at? And if you don't know the brand and you don't care about, it's pretty obvious.
That's a good, yeah.
Does it get lonely? You were saying that you were a creator and that early on you're sort of doing the whole thing. Does it get lonely doing that?
For sure, it can, but it helps. Honestly, it helped that I now have a boyfriend who's also a YouTuber.
Okay.
So it makes it easier. Whatever I'm doing, I'm working, I'm focused, but then it helps to come home to someone who understands everything on a level to where all you have to say is a few words and they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
So before that, it was kind of weird being in New York alone. Your friends are basically the only thing you do with them is collaborate and create, which I love. I mean, I love New York for the reason with when I'm hanging out with people, I'm creating. I mean, that is my type of friendship that I love. But sometimes when you go home at 9 p.m. and you're eating your takeout dinner, it's kind of okay, time to do the same thing over again. It can. So,
yeah, definitely.
So I think it's also just the self-awareness of what makes you happy. I mean, in the beginning, I felt the pressure of I have to go hang out with these people. I need to go get drinks with these people. I need to go to dinner with these people. That's what normal people do. You need, you need to do what normal people do with friends. And over the past year, I've just gained an enormous amount of awareness that I'm good with how I do things, and I enjoy my work and I enjoy the process. So I no longer kind of put that shame on me that I'm not doing what everyone else is doing. So that's helps.
Yeah, but it's great to be so comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, and I think it takes people a while to understand that.
Definitely.
And it's definitely a journey. And so since you've lived in New York, you lived in San Francisco, it's so funny to see a city that is more expensive than New York. I mean, San Francisco is crazy when it comes to rent and stuff. Nuts. But like you just said, it really is this incubator for talent, for companies. You go there if you're a coder, if you're a customer service ninja, you will get a job, right? It's not easy, but you can get a job there. So what is your perspective on the value prop of San Francisco? Because it's so expensive.
Yeah, sure. It's incredibly expensive, and there's no doubt about that. It's an incredible place to live because, I used to think, it doesn't matter where you are. You can launch this business in Birmingham, Alabama. And that may be true, but culture is everything. And San Francisco culture is about entrepreneurship and taking risks. And if you're in San Francisco and and you're interviewing for a job and you have a huge hole on your resume and you're I spent 6 months trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, or I spent 6 months traveling, so I quit my job and I didn't want to do anything else. no one's like, why would you do that? I feel like if you tried to do that, if you were an attorney in New York and you do that, people would be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Like, this is a huge gap it happened 3 years ago, and this is still a huge gap on your resume. And in San Francisco, no one would blink an eye. They'd be like, yeah, I completely understand that. And people are willing to take enormous risks. Like, in very few cities are people willing to take, willing to give up steady paychecks and give up 9-to-5 jobs or prestigious jobs and say, you know what, none of what I'm going to do may not work out and might be really detrimental to the rest of my life, but it might work out, and I'm willing to take that risk. In San Francisco, everyone is willing to take that risk.
So everyone's on the same page, which helps, and that probably helps with the hiring process too.
That helps.
Everyone is on the same page.
That helps with the hiring process. And it can be weird because when I hired our first employee, she's like, we were squatting out of a tiny conference room in somebody else's office. And she wasn't like, why are we working in this tiny conference room, just you and I? She's like, yeah, I get it. This is San Francisco. We work, I will work anywhere. We'll work out of a Starbucks if we have to.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens in San Francisco. People take risks, and you do what you need to in order to get the job done. And she would do that as well. And that's really helpful in terms of building the culture of we need to get this, we need to build a big business, and we want this to be really special.
Right. You don't have to answer this if it's uncomfortable, but for incentives for employees in the beginning, did you give everyone little slices of equity, or did you give bonuses depending on their performance?
Yeah, it was more bonus based.
Okay.
And the reason that we did that was, one, we actually had the cash to give out bonuses.
Gotcha.
I
feel like incentives are different for everyone, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And even today, today we give out bonuses based on so many things. Some people get bonuses based on the overall business. Some people get bonuses based on their performance, depending on who they are and what they affect in terms of the business. But in reality, it's all over the place. And I understand why anyone would give out equity, and I understand why people would give out equity, and I understand why people would give out cash bonuses. Yeah. For us, we went out with cash bonuses in part because we had a little, when we raised that $250,000, it was through debt, and I was like, I don't know how this debt affects equity.
Right.
And I also thought the business would just be around a lot longer independently, so I was like, okay, we'll go figure this stuff out later on. But it was just cash bonuses, including when we sold the business, there were cash bonuses all around.
Cool. Very cool. How does that affect when you're raising money, because you kept it as not a ton of employees, it was just you in the beginning. I can imagine that giving pieces of your company is scary, but there's moments where you need that first 50,000, you need that mentorship maybe from that one investor, right? And so I'm coming from the perspective of someone who's on YouTube that might want to build a business one day and soon. I'm sure a lot of people in my audience are very curious about the startup world. That first 50,000, it's a lot in the beginning. And so is that percentage of what that angel investor, is that a normal rate for a startup, or is that negotiable? Is that dependent on your relationship with the person? How does that conversation even start?
Sure. First, everything is negotiable. Yeah. So when someone expresses interest in your business and they say, hey, I want to invest $50,000, they'll say, for $50,000, I want X percentage of the business.
What is a typical, can you give a ballpark?
So for us, that 50,000 bought 1% of the business early on. And so, but I don't think that there's a typical, because it all depends on how big your business is. Had we been, a few stages earlier, I think $50,000 would have bought 3% or 5% of our business. And had we waited a year, $50,000 would have bought 0.1% of our business. So it really depends on timing. It's the timing and how much momentum you already have.
Right.
So if you've got revenue and you've got a lot of revenue and you've shown months of growth, you're going to have a lot more leverage than if you don't have any of those things. Right. If you just come in and say, I have this idea, you don't really have a lot. And so 50,000, someone who's willing to put in $50,000 is taking an enormous risk.
Right.
But if someone who comes in and puts $50,000 into a business that's already doing $300,000 in revenue a month, there's a lot less risk.
Yeah.
And so the amount of equity they get is commensurate with that risk. Right. And for us, that $50,000 was it was super helpful. And getting to know this guy was super helpful. And what was even more helpful was understanding that we had external validation, that our idea was making sense and that other people bought into it. Selling deodorant online seems people would be like, why would you you ever do that? It's a cheap product. It doesn't make any sense. The natural, like one potential investor told us the entire natural deodorant industry is a $30 million a year industry. So why would we be interested in this business? You're going to get a small percentage of a $30 million a year industry. And I'm like, we're already doing $30 million a year. So if it's $30 million a year, I'm 100% of the natural deodorant industry. Right. And so you just like, you have these negotiations and like we certainly negotiated, our, like the equity that we gave people as well. Oh, I'm sorry, the equity that we gave in return for investments with our investors. And really it's just, a function of leverage and how much do you like this person? Like when we made the decisions to raise money, the number one thing was, can I call you and you will pick up? Mm-hmm. And like, are you going to be an asshole?
Even when you're having a baby,
yeah,
will
exactly.
you answer
That's
that
right,
text message?
And are you going to be an asshole where like I have bad news and I don't want to tell you? Or are you going to be like the person that
supportive,
I get bad news and you're like,
fix this?
Yeah, how do we fix this? Or are you going to be like, well, you really are screwing with my $50,000, Moiz.
Right.
I wish I could get it back. And I'm just going to be like, I want to hide this from you actually.
Right.
And so like all the people that we raised money from were very, very helpful. And no one was like, wow, this is bad news. I don't like this. Everyone was like, okay, great. There's a problem going on. What are the ways that we can talk about it and like think about it in a way that's helpful? And who can we connect you with that can help solve this problem?
Because it's so much more than money, right? You could raise $2 million from a Joe Schmo who's not even in your industry, or maybe $100,000 from someone who really understands it, who can connect you to people who can help you. And so it's really so much more than money. But thank you for sharing that, because I think it really helps with perspective, because a lot of people, I think, go into it blindly. And if you're not in San Francisco, if you don't have those mentors, you really don't even know where to start.
Definitely.
Right?
It is really hard when you like in San Francisco. It's much easier because there are so many people whose full-time job it is to go find companies to invest in. And I would say it's 10% connections when we were raising money, and 90% how do I get along with you? Like if you're going to be an asshole and you can introduce me to Barack Obama, it's not going to be great.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I really just have to make sure I understand that we have a good relationship.
Right.
And if we do, things will work out. And if we don't, it'll be terrible every day.
Okay, last question. So having experience in the direct-to-consumer sector, what are some companies right now that stand out to you, and why?
Oh, there's so many. So
I know there's so many, right?
There's so many. It's such a hot industry, and I think people have done amazing jobs. Like, just walking around, I've seen so many pairs of Allbirds, and I'm like, these guys are amazing. Like, how did you make a shoe company? Like, it's hard. Like Nike is a hard business to have. Like those shoes are really good.
Yeah.
They
were smart though. They went the complete opposite, where forget support.
Yeah.
It's just going to feel like feathers on your feet.
Yeah.
So I will say they're not the best if you have like a heavy walking day in New York, because it lacks the support. However, if you like fly a lot, if you're not like, it really does help when you don't even feel the shoes on your feet, right?
Talking about flying a lot, I think Away Travel has done a fantastic job. Like
you're just naming all the brands that I am.
Yeah, they're brand geniuses. The girls that created Away Travel are brand geniuses. I think Buffy is a really good one, which is like this comfort company that people haven't heard of, that's growing a lot.
Do they make sheets?
They make sheets as
like
well.
Comforters?
Yeah. They make comforters and like duvet covers, and they're doing really well. And like they're brand geniuses. They're like, look, try out our comforter at home. You don't even have to pay for it. If you don't like it in 30 days, you can send it back and we'll never charge you, or you can pay us in 30 days, which is like a unique model. And they've done really well for themselves. Glossier's done really well for themselves as well.
They're
like
crushing it.
When you see like
Louise, when you see the line.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a store
like,
really close
insane.
to here. Yeah.
I think one of the brands that people don't appreciate enough is Rothy's, because like Rothy's has not raised as much money as like Allbirds or.
What is Rothy's? Is it shoes?
Yeah, it's like a women's shoe company, and what they actually do is they make women's shoes out of recycled plastic bottles, and you can like wash the shoes.
How do you spell that?
Rothys. Yeah, Rothy's. And like they haven't raised a ton of money, and they're building an amazing brand. And like it's just under the radar because they're not in TechCrunch articles as much as like the Allbirds and Aways of the world.
Oh yeah, they're cute.
They've done a fantastic job, and in San Francisco they're crushing it. I'm sure they're crushing it all over actually, but in San Francisco they're all over the place. I admire all of those brands. I also admire a bunch of, like, there's a mattress company called Nectar. That came out of like nowhere and is now like the second best-selling mattress company.
Are they like partnered with brick and mortar stores though? Is it like a sleep mattress who made Nectar? Because for some reason I'm seeing them
I think they're
in stores.
They're in stores, but I think you can find like Casper in stores. Like Casper's available at Target and used to be available at like West Elm.
Didn't know
like
that.
A bunch of these mattress companies have partnered with
Gotcha.
brick and mortar retailers, but like Nectar did not exist. I think like 3 years ago.
Why are they special?
They just know how to, like, I don't know how they've been able to
comfy.
grow a business as well as they have. And like that's what's phenomenal about that business is like they haven't raised a lot of money and they've been phenomenally successful at growing their brand. And so that's special.
That's so cool.
So I think all of those businesses are doing really, really well.
So
and
those
like when I see them, I'm like awe-inspired because I'm like, you guys have created a household name or like, you know, a community, like a massive community in a very short period of time. And that's like, I think that's one of the things we always struggled with was like we were always focused on like how do we grow the sales of the company, and now we're like, okay, let's take a step back and make sure we understand what the company stands for and that we double down on things that it stands for.
It's being sales driven versus brand driven.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you need both.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to build brand, which maybe that's that one big TV commercial that pops off, but then maybe your sales driven stuff is like, how can we fix our Instagram creative or Facebook creative?
Yeah,
so there's so many different ways and strategies, and those are some great companies to look at and see what they're doing with, because DTC is still, it's just beginning. I feel like it's just beginning, and it's interesting to see the players. I just discovered that the same dude who co-founded Warby Parker is the same dude
from Harry's.
From Harry's, who just sold for $1 billion.
Yeah, 1.4 billion.
$1.4 billion. Yeah. I'm telling you, this world is smaller than you think.
Yeah, it really is.
It's crazy, right? Well, thank you so much for being on. Is there anything you want to plug? Do you have a Twitter and Instagram?
I have a Twitter. I'm at Moiz Ali, which is just my first and last name together.
Amazing. So it'll be in the description below. Anything else you want to put out in the world?
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you. It was
Love
so
talking
fun.
about e-commerce.
Yes, it's so fun. No, I think this is like super helpful to people because, you know, a lot of people aren't in San Francisco yet. They're not in New York yet. So that's why I love podcasts, YouTube videos, is you can meet the people where they are, right? And this was such a great conversation. So thanks for being on That Creative Life.
Thank you very much.
Yes, make sure, guys, to subscribe so you get it in your feed every single Monday. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. I could go on and on. Everything's in the description below. Also, there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/thatcreativelife, where I put out clips, behind the scenes stuff. You can join on my YouTube channel for the full video podcast. But hey, this will be in your feed every single Monday. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Bye, guys.